லைவ் போயிருங்க.
தமிழ் தாய் வாழ்த்து. நீராறும் கடலுடுத்த நிலமடந்த கெழிலொழுகும் சீராறும் வதனமென திகழ்பரத கண்டமிதில் தெக்கணமும் அதிசிறந்த திராவிடனல் திருநரும் திலகமுமே அத்திலக வாசனை போல் அனைத்துலகும் இன்பமுற எத்திசையும் புகழ் மணக்க இருந்த பெரும் தமிழன் அங்கே வாழ்த்துதுமே.
வணக்கம். உங்கள் அனைவரையும் இந்த நிகழ்வுக்கு வரவேற்பதில் மிகுந்த மகிழ்ச்சி அடைகிறேன். I extend a warm welcome to all of you for today's study. The fourth chapter, Mrs. Subhadra Suresh is going to talk about the language X in the book Peggy Morgan's Father Tongue, Motherland, The Birth of Language in South Asia. I would like to say a word about Mrs. Subhadra. Even though she is from United States, living in Cincinnati area, she had to come to Maryland to visit a relative of her in hospital. Then she heard about Thiru R. Balakrishnan and Thiru R. Sundar Ganeshan going to talk in Maryland, and she came in between hospital trips to the talk, and then she joined the group, and today she is presenting. Warm welcome to you, Subhadra. And also, I have to say, திருக்குறளில் ஒன்று சொல்லணும். அவர் பொருட்பாலில் கல்வி அதிகாரத்தில் சொல்கிறாரு, உவப்ப தலைகூடி உள்ள பிரிதல் அனைத்தே புலவர் தொழில். அதாவது எல்லாரும் விரும்பி கூடி கல்வி கற்று அல்லது படித்து தெரிந்து கொண்டு திரும்ப பிரியும் பொழுது நம்ம மறுபடியும் எப்போ கூடுவோங்கிற ஒரு இயக்கத்தோடு பிரியணுங்கிறது அவர் எண்ணம். உவப்ப தலை கூடி உள்ள பிரிதல் அனைத்தே புலவர் தொழில். அதை போல இந்த குடும்பமும் வெறுப்புணர்வு இல்லாத பொறுப்புணர்வும் அறிவியல் பார்வையும் கொண்டது. இந்த ஒத்த கருத்தாளரை நீங்கள் கூறினால் நாங்கள் இந்த குடும்பத்தில் இணைத்து விடுவோம். இந்த குடும்பம் பெரிதாக பெரிதாக நம் அனைவருடைய சிந்தனையும் ஒருங்கேற சிந்தித்து பல்வேறு வகைகளிலே புதிய புதிய சிந்தனைகளையும் உண்மையை தேடுதலையும் தொடர முடியும். With these few words, I extend warm welcome to all of you.
Sridevi will give the formal introduction.
Vanakkam. Please join me in welcoming Subhadra Suresh, ma'am. With a master's and MPhil in zoology, she brings deep training in basic science and molecular biology. Beyond the lab, she has been a tireless community leader, serving 2 terms as president of the Cincinnati Tamil Sangam, now a board member and a principal of the Tamil school, where she has taught for 17 years to keep language and culture thriving for the next generation. Subhadra also serves on the board of local art show committee and volunteers with Jewish community initiatives, building bridges across cultures and faiths. An avid traveler, a reader, and a photographer, Subhadra ma'am blends a love of science, culture, and the arts into a remarkable community-centered life. We extend a warm welcome to Ms. Subhadra. The floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Sridevi, for so beautifully crafting my journey in this life. Thank you so much. And a warm welcome to one and all. எல்லாத்துக்கும் கேக்குதுங்களா? Volume is good. The screen is good. Everything is good. Okay. Thank you. I'm going to start sharing my slides and hello? Yeah. Sorry. One second, I'll just put it in play mode and then we will. Is it all good?
Good, good.
Volume is good. So I'm sure everybody will agree with me, when we started the book, it was pretty an intriguing read, quite confusing. But we are here today to review the 4th chapter, that is a search of language X. The book now and the journey in which Peggy Morgan is taking us is now very much clear and evident to us. And now the title actually makes more sense to me. It's Father Tongue and Motherland. That is a tongue that is being provided to the communities by the migrant men who came to the land, and a mother tongue that has been formed from the language, the native language that has been existing in the land. And actually, the title makes it a complete when you also read the small words, the tiny print underneath, which says the birth of the languages in South Asia. So which means this has been pretty much the common formula to understand how languages have been born in South Asia. So having said that, today's chapter will be the search of language X. What is language X? So Colin Messica's paper was the first one to talk about a list of words that he had chosen which did not have a source, and he called them as unknown words. And this happened when he was analyzing the Aryan and the non-Aryan elements in North Indian agriculture. This was followed by Michael Witzel and Franklin Southworth's paper, who also accepted that there was an unknown language that was present in the Indus Valley civilization, and that he termed it as language X. And that's the same meaning that Peggy Morgan has drawn into her book, where she says that the hypothetical language that was the source of all of Messica's enigma is the language X. And today we are slowly going to understand how to build our way to understanding what the language X could have been in the oldest civilization that was prevailing in India, that is the Indus Valley civilization. The first known or identified forms of literature in Indus Valley civilization were the seals. Now, the seals, what are they? They could have been people's names, they could have been merchant stamps, they could have just been edicts. But if these were words, then how did they sound? Did they have a sound, first of all? Or were they just symbols, concepts, or markings? And Steve Farmer, Richard Sprout, and Michael Witzel based their deduction on these and said, or they decided, that the Indus Valley civilization was pre-literate because they did not have a language. They only had seals. And again, the seals, did they have a sound or they have a concept that was not known? So they just decided that the civilization was pre-literate. So here, the first step Peggy Morgan is doing is, she's trying to make us understand that Indus Valley civilization was a far more intelligent civilization with an intelligent language that was present. So once that has been established, then it'll be easy to understand how this language gave rise to a family of Dravidian languages in India. So how does she bring about, or how does she explain that the Indus Valley civilization is a more civilized one? Is because she takes, 1 second, please. Can somebody take this? Okay. So she takes into account the Rosetta Stone. So when the Rosetta Stone was discovered, they found that there were 3 different types of scripts on the stone. The first one was the Egyptian, the topmost was the Egyptian hieroglyphics. The second sect had the Demotic script, and the third was ancient Greek. People could not understand any of it. Then finally, they found out that the Demotic script was somewhere connected to the Coptic Christian script. So using the Coptic Christian script, they identified what the Demotic script was, and they were able to read it. Then word by word, they associated it to the ancient Greek, and then that helped them to understand and decipher the hieroglyphics. So she says that there is a meaning why these civilizations choose to write down their history or their whatever they have found or something important on stones. But we did not find such stone edicts in the Indus Valley civilization. Rather, we only found seals. So again, do we consider that the Indus Valley civilization was a pre-literate, very backward kind of a civilization? No, that's where another author, Bahata Ansumali Mukhopadhyay, comes into play. She says these seals can be compared to the QR codes that we have today. So imagine several thousand years later, somebody finds our QR codes and they are not able to figure out what. Could they just tell us that we were a very backward civilization or a backward society? No, we have so much culture, we have so much literature in us. So it is the same way, taking these seals and telling that they were backward. So she actually says that she found 2 particular seals. One was with a rosary P. நான் சின்ன வயசுல பார்த்திருக்கேன், இந்த ஆசாரிங்க வீட்டுக்கெல்லாம் போனாக்க அவங்க இந்த கருகுமணி குண்டுமணி சின்னதா இருக்கும், அதுதான் அந்த ரோசரி பி. அதை வச்சுதான் அவங்க வந்து வெயிட் ஆஃப் த கோல்டை வந்து அவங்க வந்து அளப்பாங்க. அதை வந்து அந்த சின்ன இதுல பேலன்ஸ்ல வச்சு அந்த வெயிட் ஆஃப் த கோல்டை வந்து அளப்பாங்க. So on the rosary P, there is a seal which has those rosary P, and similarly there is another seal which has the furnace or the ஊதுகுலை. அவர் ஊதாகுலையை வச்சு அவர் ஊதுனாக்க எப்படி இது பண்றதுன்ட்டு. So இது ரெண்டையும் வச்சு she says that easily proves that one was from the goldsmith shop, and the other one says that he was producing gold or he was making ornaments in his shop. So she says these seals were used by merchants or they were used for trade reasons, and that tells. And then I'm just going to read what it is said from the book. It says, was literature the first thing a society would wish to record in imperishable stone? And if a civilization did not choose to preserve its stories and hymns in writing, what sorts of things would it want to note down if it had a complex economy with multiple transactions involving exact measurements and currency? So if it was a civilization which had a complex economy and multiple transactions and measurements, that means it should have been a far advanced, a far literate society. So now that we have established that Indus Valley civilization is a very, very advanced civilization, it becomes easy for us. Yeah, it becomes easy for us now to take into consideration what the language that would have been spoken in that civilization, which now we consider as language X. Now, the favored approach of philologists in finding the Indus Valley civilization languages, they just bypass all these seals and they go straight to the Rig Veda words. Or the many words found in the Rig Veda, they did not have an early Sanskrit source. So that means the Vedic men, when they came to the Indus Valley civilization, they used the words that they were familiar with in their local tongues to describe the new things that they found in the newfound civilization or the newfound society that they have come into or they have migrated into. Now, Messika had a list of these words, and these words actually form the language X. Now, the Finnish linguist Asko Parpola, he also mentioned a number of words that had a Dravidian structure. And so he proposed Dravidian etymologies to these Sanskrit words. Now, Witzel, he also saw a Paramunda origin. Franklin Southward, he proposed an Elamo-Dravidian origin, the Elamite being an ancient Iranian language. Now, so we have kind of what she says. She takes all these references, but finally she comes to a conclusion telling that there were two sources for words or vocabulary and grammar and for the structure of the language, which could have been the language X. And those, she says, are from derivatives from the Munda languages through the maternal line to the first people who came out of Africa. And then the Dravidian words, which were used by the first farmers who came from Megrad, the area of the Baluchistan. And between the combination of these two raised local languages, but the actual substratum came from language X. So she says we have to choose the Munda languages and the Dravidian words as the first port of call to search the language X. Now, if you take a language, any language for that matter, it has the flesh and it has the bones. The flesh is basically, it could be the vocabulary in the language, the dialect, the sounds, etc. But the bones, which is the strongest substratum, is the grammar or the structure, how the language or the operating system of it is the bones. And so now she actually starts, which I really love the way she's put it, like as a story. She says, let's say Vedic migrant men came into the Indus Valley area and they were talking the early Sanskrit. And that had a structure like the Avestan or the Greek or the Latin. And it did not have any references to the Southeast Asian languages that we see today, like the retroflexes. And the nouns had 8 different case endings for that language. And verbs had different conjugations. And verbs agreed with the person markers and not with the gender markers. So this was the language that was being spoken by the Vedic migrant men when they walked into that piece of land. And this could be for trade reasons, for any other ways of, for their livelihood. That is the reason why these men came. Then they took the local wives. And when they took the local wives who were speaking the local language, that started giving, and between the local wives and the Vedic migrant men, they got the children. Now the children started talking a language with a much richer grammar that has been taken from the mother's language, which was the local native language, and using the vocabulary and the dialect and the sounds from the father's language, which actually was migrated into the land. So now we can understand the title of the book, Father, Land, Mother, Tongue. So now the language that the children are speaking and the language that the local wives are speaking will be the Prakrit here, and the Sanskrit being the purer form that was being brought in by the migrant men. Now, there were not just one Prakrit, there were multiple Prakrit, because these men went into different little communities. So there were multiple Prakrits that were spoken at the same time by different societies or communities that were existing at the same time. So when this was happening, she is able to clearly now demarcate and say that the north of the subcontinent, that is, I'm thinking like above the Vindhyas, the north of Vindhyas in India, the present day India, at the confluence of where Yamuna and Ganga rivers met, she is able to make a clear demarcation of languages that were spoken in the West and languages that were spoken in the East. Now, the Western languages that were the modern languages of an extended Indus Valley civilization, because we know where the Indus Valley civilization existed. So you just start opening up the areas around, that becomes the extended IVC areas. And what are the languages that are being spoken there, which are the modern languages, are the Hindi family, Haryanvi, Rajasthani, Gujarati, Punjabi, Sindhi, Marathi, and Konkani. And on the eastern side of the confluence of Yamuna and Ganga are the Magadhan region languages, which are the modern Bengali, Odia, Assamese, and the Bihari dialects of Maithili and Bhojpuri. So in archaeological terms, we see the reference to Indus Valley periphery. So that in linguistic terms will be referred to as the extended Indus Valley periphery region. So mega language family, she says, that were connected by the common factors that did not link to Sanskrit or to Prakrit. These were the languages that were spoken. So that they are mega language families, but they had no connection to the Sanskrit or the Prakrit, but they were spoken in the extended Indus Valley periphery region. So again, she takes here. So far we have seen Creole, how it started with as the pidgins, and then that got grammar from the local language, and it became a language that was being spoken by the native speakers called Creole. And then she speaks about Dakkani, which she had taken earlier to explain how languages were created. In this chapter, she takes Brahui and Brushaski. Now, I have made a chart here for you to understand this better. So Brahui is spoken in Baluchistan, and it's the core of Dravidian origin vocabulary. It has most of the Dravidian origin vocabulary in it. It has no gender, it has no ergativity, and it has loan words from Persian, Baluchi, and Urdu. And grammar is of the Dravidian kind. It's typical negative conjugation, and the basic vocabulary is also Dravidian. And the other language she takes for comparison is Burushaski, which is spoken in the Hansa Gilgit area, tucked up in the Karakoram Mountains. So it is more like it had no predators. So it was a well-guarded language by itself. And it had structural similarities with Punjabi, Pashto, Baluchi. And these are the modern languages, some of the modern languages of the IBC periphery. So it had structural language similarities to those. And these 5 languages, and they form the substratum that is provided by the wives of early Grisho men. I hope I'm clear so far with whatever. So that is the reason why she's taking these 2 languages. You have Brahui, which is now exposed to other influences, and we have Brushaski, which has been tucked up and it's kept away from the influence of other languages that crept in. But these 2 have provided a lot of material to the modern day Dravidian languages that are being spoken in the extended IBC periphery. And she says these 2 languages can play an extremely important role in finding out what the language X would have been that formed the substratum in the IBC. Now, how does, I'm sure, if you read the book, there is so much of in-depth into the language structure, and, she explains terminologies, terms, and everything, and grammar and all that. But if you're going to go deep into it, we are going to get ourselves further away from the actual essence of what we have to understand from this chapter. So I'm just going to the essence of it. And so with what I have, the features that I have shown on the screen, I can explain what she's been trying to explain in all those pages. So she says that there are certain features which are exclusive to the that are being practiced in the modern day languages that are spoken in the IVC region. And she says these features are very common in these languages, but are not present in Sanskrit. So the first feature is retroflexion, and that is the existence of the dental consonant, like th. So where naku vandu number dental pallula poi idikirathu, adan the dental consonants, th, d, and the sounds, those sounds are very much prevalent in these modern day languages of the IVC extended periphery region. And the next is the aspiration, that is the H sound, the his sound, like th, th, th. So these are present in the Punjabi, in the Sindhi, the Pashto, and all those languages. But as we come to the southern region of India, it is present in Telugu, Kannada, and Malayalam because of their most influences from Sanskrit. But for some reason, Tamil has kept away itself from Sanskrit. So it does not have these aspirated words, the k, the, th, which is present in the other words, other languages. The word order. Most of all the South Asian languages, they have the order of a subject, object, verb. And the other languages have the subject, verb, object, which we don't need to go in. So we are looking at the South Asian languages, which is a subject, object, verb. எனக்கு வந்து ஹிந்தி தெரியாது, சான்ஸ்கிரிட்டும் தெரியாது. அதனால தமிழ் தெரியறதுனால தமிழை வச்சு I thought I can explain this. Like for instance, in English, we will say, in Tamil, we'll say, Selvikku solam pidikkum. Subject is Selvi, solam is the object, pidikkum is the verb. But in English, in the other Eurasian languages, you see a Selvi likes corn, where the object is pushed towards the end. So that is the word order that is very much prevalent in all these languages that we are talking, including Brahvi and Burushaski. Then the light verbs. So for the light verbs is, I'm going to take the examples from the book. It's on page 123. For example, in English, it is to do marriage, kalyanam say. But we will, in Tamil, if you take, again, I'm going to take only references from Tamil because I understand that clearly. So to marry, kalyanam pannudal, kalyanam panniko. So you have a light verb there, marry, and then to do love, anbu say, that is to do love. And that is, it's a light verb there. And to do memory, ஞாபகம் வச்சுக்கோ அப்படின்னு நம்ம ஞாபகம் வச்சுக்கிறியா, ஞாபகம் வந்துடுச்சு. So it is a verb, it's a light verb. So to keep in memory itself is a verb. ஞாபகப்படுத்துதல்னு சொல்லியிருக்கலாம், பட் நம்ம சொல்றது வந்து ஞாபகம் வச்சுக்கோ, ஞாபகம் வந்துருச்சு அப்படின்னு இன்னொரு வேர்பை சேர்த்துக்கிறதுனால there is a usage of a light verb, and that they say is very common to this group of this family of languages. Then next is, we have spoken so much about ergativity and gender. That is not there in these languages. The compound verbs, and then reduplication. That is the echo words. This was the most interesting factor that we'll all agree to. Like telling, ஏதாவது வீட்டுல சாப்பிட கீப்பிட இருக்கா அப்படின்னு நம்ம கேட்போம் இல்லைங்களா, சாப்பிட கீப்பிட இருக்கிற, தண்ணி கிண்ணி குடிச்சியா, அந்த மாதிரி. So in these language groups also have the same thing. They say uppu gippu in Tamil, ek in Hindi, yamu mamu in Burushaski. So this reduplication or the echo words is very much prevalent in this family of languages. Then the honorifics. We are all familiar with this word G. And you know, G has crept into our modern Tamil. இப்ப நம்மளே தமிழ்ல பேசுறப்ப என்னங்க ஜி அப்படின்றாங்க. உங்க பேரை சொல்றப்ப நம்ம தமிழ் சங்கம் இதுல எல்லாம் பேசுறப்ப பார்த்திருக்கோம், the younger people will say G அப்படின்ற வேர்டை யூஸ் பண்ணுவாங்க. So this G, the honorific usage of terminologies has been a part of these languages. So like ni versus ningal in Malayalam. So ni is a very not a very respectful way of referring to a person, but if you say Ningal, then it becomes more respective. Tangal in Tamil, Nuvu, Miru in Telugu. So these are all the common honorific words that are being used in this language. So she says these features that are present in these modern languages that are spoken today in the extended periphery of the IVC, which probably originated from that language X, which we are in search of, does not exist in Sanskrit. So in conclusion, the language X comes as a Dravidian type language. Having all this considered, we know that the substratum or the bones from which all these languages have sprouted should have been of a Dravidian type language. And it should have had the oldest form of ergativity, because today the Burushaski language, which has been well preserved, tucked away, it still has the oldest form of ergativity. So that probably will let us know that language X also had the similar type of an ergativity. And ergativity and gender stand out as the most defining feature of language X. Punjabi, Tamil, Burushaski, Bhojpuri, and Rahui, together with the language X, they form the extended family. They form the extended family, with Sanskrit being the foreign guest. And Tamil has distanced itself from Sanskrit and Prakrit influences. And the semblance of these languages were not just influences. So we cannot say that, oh, people were watching, people talk these languages, or they were watching, watching shows being done by these people. It's not because of that these languages have come or spread everywhere, but it is because of the continuity of the migration of these people starting to move from that place and carrying the language with them. And finally, the author comes to a grand conclusion that it was one language family that got divided as the Dravidian spread to the south and the east. So it was a beautiful journey reading this chapter, and it gives more and it sheds more light. And I'm really excited to know that we are speaking a language that has connections to this language X that was spoken in the Indus Valley civilization. And it is our great honor. And I'm very much thankful to Peggy Morgan for this beautiful book that is written in a thesis style. And thank you so much for JOC Study Group for choosing this book. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was very, very nice, very nicely outlined. We could keep going over it again and again. It is clear that ergavity is an important concept for us to gather. But now the floor is open to questions or comments. Let's take questions first.
Yeah. Can I ask the excellent talk? Thank you very much for nice preparation and clear slides. Remarkable. I have one question, or what do you think about this? In South languages, somehow Tamil has avoided certain sounds may have come from Sanskrit or other thing. How you think that was possible, or was there a mix and then they're thrown away? What are your thoughts on that?
The understanding that I have is that Tamil itself has been a very enriched language. It had all the sounds it requires. And I always have felt that the language Tamil has been part of the land, created from the land and created by the people who lived in that land, by hearing sounds, and looking at things, and then with their intelligent knowledge, also putting sounds together to form more different words and enriching the vocabulary. So when this is a very enriched language, it did not need these sounds, which will just be other embellishments. We already have these languages. So the very fact that all Tamilians can speak English and other languages without a prominent accent tells that we have a very well-developed language.
Thank you. And for one more question.
I
So,
have an answer to you, Dr. Arsuchalaya. This is Vaisen here. It's an
okay.
excellent question.
Uh,
This is also something that I have been puzzling with, and very recently, also only very recently, I came across something that is to some extent convincing to myself, and I'm going to say it out here, and you can do some more research on this. Basically, yes, there are, like, if you look at the IPA table, International Phonetic Alphabet table, there are certain sounds that are completely missing in Tamil. But the way you framed your question, especially with Sanskrit and the North Indian subcontinent languages, why we miss such sounds is not because we don't have, it may, at the surface level, it may appear that we don't have a letter to represent that, and hence we miss the sound. But the truth of the matter is not so. What it actually means is, in Tamil, we have made grammar such that when you put appropriate letters in front and at the back, they form the necessary sound. So, from a linguistics perspective, where the sound originates at the அன்னத்துல மேல தொடுற இடத்துல இருந்து எப்படி அது பிறக்குது, அதுக்கு பிறகு எவ்வளவு ஃபாலோ த்ரூ சவுண்ட் வருதுன்றதை பொறுத்து குட்டியல் உகரம் குட்டியல் இகரம் எல்லாம் இருக்குது தமிழ்ல. ஸோ இட் பேசிக்கலி சேஸ் யூ புட் அ ஊ சவுண்ட் பட் வித் லெஸ் எம்பசிஸ், and it says you produce this sound with less air in your mouth, and hence the notion of kaham is not kam, is because we have that built into the grammar. So we may not have separate letters to represent that way, but we have grammar to complement that, is what I have read. And it's sort of convincing to me, but it's one argument again. It's not the argument.
thank you very much. That makes sense.
I may add just one little bit further to that. Tolkapia devotes how to pronounce.
Oh.
On the other hand, contrast not to say anything little about Panini's work, there is no chapter on pronunciation in Panini's work. And of course, there may have been differences, but this is a point that was made by one scholar at some point in time. Something to keep in mind. The example of Kalham is a very nice example, because Vallinam, Mellinam, when you have two the same the letter comes after Vallinam, it must be softened. Two Vallinams won't come together is the rule, right? So the pronunciation gets softened. Vallinam becomes Mellinam, right? And that is the rule that I remember. I'll stop there. And other questions?
Thank you. That one more question, just to be brief. So Tamil's relationship to Proto-Dravidian language, since Brahi is a Proto-Dravidian or Dravidian language, the core, the mother's aspect of grammar. So how do you connect Proto-Dravidian and Brahi, Indus Valley to Tamil? What are your thoughts, Subhadra?
So again, with taking Peggy Morgan's, the way of analyzing the languages. So she actually says you have a substratum. There is a language, you have a substratum. Then whoever comes brings in more vocabulary and ways of how to talk, dialects and everything. So my understanding after reading this and for Tamil is, so Tamil actually had a substratum. It's not here that I strongly believe Tamil is a much, much older language, or maybe it was simultaneously, it was developed. I do not know, but I do feel that the language has got very, very deep old roots. So if that was a substratum, then if whatever words and whatever grammar that came in, that was accepted. That's why even Tolkappiyam says that we can accept new languages, new words. It gives us that little bit of, the wiggle room there. So Tamil, just like how, for an example, it has kept Sanskrit's influence a little bit away, it probably kept other influences too over time. one at a time, taking exactly what it required and keeping most of its influence and keeping its originality within itself. That's what I
Thank you. Thank you
understand.
very much. Thank you.
Arasut, my understanding from Dr. Peggy Mohan's previous chapter is that she put some gap between Tamil/Dravidian and language X because she gives so much emphasis on ergativity that is completely absent in Tamil. There is a little bit of that in Brahui, but not a whole lot. But she thinks that language X probably predates Dravidian and / Tamil. The Iranian farmers are also later migrants. So language X may have existed in Indus Valley before the arrival of the Dravidians. The interesting question really is, why is it that Tamil lacks aspiration as well as ergativity? If it did go through Indus Valley and absorb parts of language X, it should have had it. It is also possible that Tamil and Dravidian languages predate language X. These are open-ended thing. I'm not entirely sure where she drives towards. Until I read the final chapter, I'm not sure where she is going at. But so far, I think she thinks that language X is probably a combination of, she's doing a detective work. She doesn't know what language X is. She thinks that language X probably has some substratum influences on the languages of the Indus periphery. So you have to go dig into the northwestern Indian languages to see what attributes are there and connect them to this missing language. Basically because we cannot find out what language X was. It was, probably not written except for the seals, and we have no idea how it was pronounced, and we have no idea what its grammar was. So we had to deduce all of that from the northwestern India's languages. And there are attributes of Tamil in those languages, but not everything. So Tamil and Dravidian languages have some distance between themselves and the language X. So I don't think she is essentially agreeing to the idea that language X was Dravidian.
Thank you. Thank you, Mani. Thank you.
So that was a comment. Are there other questions?
I think language X was not Dravidian, Mani sir, but because the other languages that have sprouted, and if you could think that language X is a substratum for these newer modern languages to be born,
Yes.
then it goes to say that we accept language X also into this big family as a Dravidian language.
See, that is, there are ways in which she kind of connects, because she talks about the northern Dravidian and southern Dravidian languages, and she puts Tamil in the southern Dravidian language that doesn't have the ergativity, and
Yes.
northern Dravidian may have had the ergativity. The other thing is she repeatedly points to the fact that Indus Valley region was huge. It
Yes.
may have had multiple languages, not just dialects, multiple languages, and it may have also had peripheral languages, and there may have been, foreigners, so to speak, who had merchants or diplomats in their cities. So all of that influence may have been there. So she's all over the place. When I completed my chapter, I thought that she was really putting a lot of distance between Dravidian and Tamil and language X. Language X seemed to be kind of a relative, but not the same.
Okay. Yeah. And it is actually the substratum. That's what that is the bowl of all these languages that have come.
Yeah. But yeah.
And in this
substratum-
chapter, finally she ends is that It is one big language family that we have, and that has been taken over by the different Dravidian groups when they moved southeast. And I think the next chapter, that is what she's going to be elaborating and explaining. So
I hope so, because it is there are a lot of puzzles in there, and then she's going about it like a forensic scientist. She looks at evidence from here, the evidence from there, and tries to connect the dots. It's still a big puzzle as to why is it that after the Indus Valley civilization collapsed, only the Tamils developed sophisticated grammar, and now it looks like they even had urban civilization and probably had iron. Probably they were contemporaries of Indus Valley, and they were trading with that. We have to see how all these things connect. And at this point, it is still an open-ended question.
Sridevi had a question.
Right, Sridevi.
Yeah, my question is for the terms like light verbs and voice aspirants. And in page number 145, she's again comparing language X with Tamil, Burushaki, and Brukhai, where she says like most of the features of language X in you have very similar to all the other three languages in the table. So could you just explain this? Is that it's showing like Tamil is very closer to language X? Is what that she's meaning in that table?
yes, she's able to, this is what I understood, Sridevi, that she's able to club Tamil along with these other modern languages that are being spoken in the periphery of the IBC, because it has all these similarities. Now, only in the future, in the later chapters, will we get a much clearer idea how, when this particular, the features that we explained, the retroflexion and aspiration and all that, how when they were taken by the communities and when they migrated to the east and the south, how did they change? So only then will we understand how Tamil started differing so much away from this. But now she's able to make a very clear, simultaneous or a contemporary association with all these other languages. Like, for instance, in one place she mentions that if you take Punjabi and take away all the Sanskritized words from there, it would very much sound like Tamil. She says that it is, and then she says we can sing Punjabi songs with Tamil words in it, and we would not find a different sound or something, because it is that close. So that's what it is. But one thing she has mentioned very clear is that for Tamil is one of the languages that has kept Sanskrit away, or its influences mostly away from its existence. So that is very clear.
Just two comments, one question and a comment. She makes an important point about 12th century being a transition for many of the northern Indo-Aryan languages. And I couldn't quite exactly relate to that. Is it because of the incoming folks from Middle East? That's one comment or question. The second one is she makes a point in many places that men migrate, women don't migrate. And therefore, if she makes that argument with respect to migration from IVC to South India, only men from IVC, Indus Valley Civilization, came into Tamil Nadu, not women. Now, on the other hand, genetically, we find more ancient mitochondrial DNA in South compared to the North. I don't know whether they correlate. Professor Southwood makes the argument, third comment, the migrants, based on linguistic arguments, he makes the point that the people who came from Indus Valley Civilization south via Maharashtra and then into south were herders, they were not farmers. And the way he does that is taking the words that are common in Tamil and Marathi and to some extent Gujarati, that linguistic connectivity is more related to herders um, rather than with farmers. So there are there are other pieces of information or the other pieces of puzzle that quite don't match with saying same kind of people came from Indus Valley. It's only a subgroup of people from Indus Valley that came south, not necessarily. Uh, Perhaps this is a guess or a hypothesis. The elite didn't migrate, but it is only the worker class or the herders who moved, because farmers need to be in a particular place because they are tied to the land. They don't easily migrate. But herders will easily migrate. The reason is they can move their property along with them. So to make that to sort of making a temporary argument, Tamils are the result of ஆடு மாடு மேய்க்கிறவங்க in one way, and they brought that language into, or they combined with mated with women in ancient Tamil Nadu and created the Tamil civilization. அப்படின்ற ஒரு conclusion போகலாம் if you want to think along the lines of migratory pathways. I'll stop there and perhaps uh, go back to the original question about 12th century. I didn't quite get
Yes,
that
but
that particular argument.
she does mention about the Bhakti movement and the Sufi sayings and all of them, singing their ballads and going around from place to place. So that also helped in, the language immersions for communities. And yeah, you had a very strong point. It's also the Mughal invasion and, the kingdoms coming from the West that gave a big influence to the languages in this Indo-Gangetic plain, and a little bit has trickled to the south too. So,
Yeah, in the previous chapter, she talks about the 12th century a little bit longer.